Okay. Let me do one thing first. If I can just get your name first and last and the correct spelling so I have that on tape. So,
Teresa Jones. Theresia Jones.
Great. Thank you very much.
And what was your maiden name?
Wolf, W-O-L-F.
And what city were you born in?
In Nackenheim, Nackenheim. It's on the Rhine River. It's close to the biggest city of Mainz.
Is that northern Germany or southern Germany?
No, it's southern, near Frankfurt. Half hour away by car today.
And were you born in a farm? Or?
It is agriculture, farm, yeah. But my father worked as an iron worker in another town, and he had to commute by railroad to go to that every day. But my mother was born in that town, and we lived in that town. And that was when I was born in 1931. We lived there until fall of 1940. And in the fall of that 1940, we moved to Gustavsburg. That's across the Rhine River on the American side, when occupational time was American side. And my father bought a house there. And we spent, it's still today there. We spent the rest of the war in that house until it got bombed, but then we got back in it again.
What was it like in growing up in Germany?
Well, my happiest years were, of course, in Nackenheim, where I was born. War, I never heard of it, didn't even know what war was, but until we got to the house in 1940, and it was just no air raids, no bombing, none of that. It was just a daily life. I'm the oldest of six, taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, taking care of the yard, etc. And it really, for me, started in 1943. That's when we felt the bombs, the air raids, shortages of food, having to go to shelter, spending days and nights sitting on hard boxes waiting for the clear sign we could go home again. Just getting through day by day.
What was your mom and dad like?
My father was born in 1908, my mother in 1910. They married when they were in their mid-20s. My father always worked in an iron factory. He was an iron worker. My mother had her master's degree in sewing. But then when she married and us six came along gradually, she just turned housewife, raising 6 kids.
You went to school in Nackenheim?
Oh, yeah, sure I did. And even went to the Holy Communion there in 1939, April 16. I'll never forget that date. And my mother's parents in Nackenheim had this great big house and lots of acres of land. And I spent lots of years going to the fields with my grandfather, his sons, which were my uncles, the oldest daughter, that's where I got my name, she's my namesake. Her and I went to fields. Townspeople came to help when harvesting. Grandfather had apple and pear orchards. Another acreage had all the cherry trees from the sour to the sweet. Another area had all the fields for corn, sugar beets for the cows, and oxen and pigs and potatoes for us. Another one, he had lots of acres of vineyards overlooking the Rhine River. And in the fall every year, me, my godmother, my grandfather, uncles, townspeople, they helped harvesting the grapes. And so when we got home to his house, to his big estate, they were tossed in a big vat, just like in the movie with Sophia Loren, where she stumped the grapes and lifted up her skirts with the bare feet. We did that. And grandfather and his sons, they bottled the wine, and they had their own distribution of wine.
Does your family do they still have the...
No, all this stopped about 1949 when my grandmother died, my grandfather's wife. And then he was widowed and getting older. I have his birth date at home. It's 1870-something. He was taken in by his oldest daughter, my namesake godmother, and she nursed him till his end of time. And that was mid-50s. But by that time, though, I was in the United States and missed going to his funeral and things like that. So it kind of stopped when the war really were in progress, the bombing rates and stuff like that. Because during the war, you had to have permits. I don't know about Berlin, München, and Cologne and all these cities, but I'm talking about my town, okay? You had to have permission to leave your town, to go to that town, even to the one across the river where I was born. And you didn't get permission. They wanted everybody to stay put, just stay home. And so everything kind of ended right then and there.
So did you spend holidays at your grandfather's place?
I don't remember any of that. I don't think, and I'm sure we never spent even a Christmas at my grandfather's house. We were busy. We were 6 children. There was school and the church to go to and the laundry and the yard and this and that. Time just flew by.
So you must have, being the oldest, you must have had a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I was the first one born, and my father needed so much help and nobody to help him. So I was the one, whether I wanted to or knew how. I wanted to. I loved my father, and he was good to me. We got along great. And what he knew and what I needed to know, he taught me. So all of me is from grandfather, my godmother, my father, my mother. Without them, there is not me.
What was your dad's name?
Heinrich. My mother was Maria.
And you're Theresia.
Theresia. Mm-hmm.
So you spent a lot of time with your father growing up?
Oh, nothing but. When the war really got going and there was shortage of food, of course, we all had the rations. And the more children a family had, the more they gotten from the Bürgermeister, the mayor of the town, if you will. But with 6 children, there is no wealth, okay? Just what father earned, and whatever that is, don't ask me, I ain't got a clue. But we had more rations to buy, what we needed to feed us 8, but not enough money to buy them, the bread, the milk, the butter, the eggs, etc., okay? But there were plenty of people in my town who were, let's just say, retirees, who had an income, who had money, maybe better off than my parents were. And they came to families such as where I came from, with lots of kids. and they would ask my mother that they're so-and-so, but we're well-known. My mother, my father knew everybody, and everybody knew them, and everything went by first-name basis, you know. Oh, Maria, I could use some rations. I need butter, I need this, I need this. I'll give you money, and sometimes lots more than what the prices were in the stores. And so it went like a black market, if you will, okay? It was well known, but you also needed to be careful that it doesn't get out of control, and then the police would be on your door. You know, you shouldn't do that. So my mother got money, and then she sent me to the store with a list of things. And this is how we managed to have at least food on the table. But then were times in 1944, especially into 45, everything was bombed and there were no stores. You couldn't buy anything. And when a butcher shop or a grocery store survived the bombings, and they had a certain amount of whatever the store was. Now, in Germany in those times, when you wanted meat, well, that store was just strictly meat, not like today, everything is combined, separate. The meat there, the fish there, the groceries there, the milk there, the bakery separate. So when the butcher put a notice on its window and said, let's just say, for instance, Saturday morning, from 7 to 10, he is going to be open, limited of whatever meat or wurst, which is lunch meat. And so my mother would wake me up in the night, Friday night into Saturday morning, like 4 in the morning. And if it was cold, she bundled me up, and she made me a cup of hot milk. We had a goat, so we just drank goat's milk, stinks. And so she bundled me up, and of course I knew where to go, and I started to stand in line. And so by the time I got there, it was probably 4:30 in the morning, 4:45, and I thought I'd be the only one in line. Heck no! The whole street was already full. And then the people, young people, mothers or fathers or whoever, they were crushed against the brick building and had blankets to keep them warm. They had 3 hours to wait till the store opened, you know, between 2 and 3 hours. And so we took turns. My mother had to get up every morning before 6 to get my father ready, and then gradually us to school. And she would send me off, okay, I get in line. And 2 hours later, when she was ready to come, she said, okay, Teresia, you go home, you do this and get your brother and your sister ready for school and yourself. I take over and wait till the store opens. We did things like that just to get a pound of meat or less. And then never forget this. The store had pork chops. Oh, Mama hadn't cooked a pork chop in months. And here she came home with 2 pork chops. And with it, well, we had potatoes. We always had cabbages. And she put a meal together. And now we were 8 on this table in the kitchen. And she served it. And of course, the father there, mother there, and us 3 kids, 3 on each side, was not chairs, was benches. And mother served it, and she gave a whole chop to father. And he wasn't going to eat that. He took his knife, and mother had the other second pork chop on her plate. Of course, it had a bone with it, you know, so that's minus meat already. And so father started to cut, looking at his wife and all around at us. And of course, we wanted some of that. And so father started to cut his pork chop into 8 pieces. And my mother did the same thing with her pork chop, into 8 pieces. And so we each had 2 nipples of meat. I'll never forget that if I live to be 1,000,000 years old. And that was just one incident, okay, of 2 lousy pork chops. But that's how times were. There was nothing to eat. There was nothing to buy. The stores had nothing. And here started traveling with the bicycles. Of course, there were no cars. My father never owned a car in his life. In those days, when you saw a car in town, there were just the people such as our doctor, the butcher, of course, the grocer, people like common people, they're just bicycling or you walk. So it was getting very bad. Father, man, he was a genius. He was hustling, he was scanning the fields. He come home and he said, okay, I have heard if I rode the bike mit Theresia to the Schwarzwald, that's the Black Forest, but I don't know the mileage of it. I need to go home and figure out which way we went. In those days, I just followed Father. We got on our bikes real early in the morning, and he had stuff to trade, such as material to make dresses, material for a window. And my mother had a sister working, her sister. She worked in Mainz in a department store, and being an employee there, she got hold of materials. In turn, she somehow did something with my mother, her sister, because she wasn't going to give my mother all that stuff for nothing. So I don't know what those two sisters had in mind and did. Anyway, we took that stuff, had it on our bikes in the back, and Father and I drove hours and hours, and we came to farmlands. And so we just went to every farmhouse. And Father said, I'm so-and-so, and this is my daughter, and we come from so-and-so, and we have so-and-so to trade. And so these farmer women mostly answered the doors, and what do you have? So they looked over what Father had to trade. And by golly, my father got bacon, he got ham, we even had pickles and things we haven't had on the table for weeks and months. And it was great. And when it got to be nighttime, we parked for a little bit. You know, every road has a ditch. So we went into the ditch, put our bikes down, and took a rest because I was very tired and sore from sitting on a hot saddle, you know, that kind of thing, young girl. So we took a break, and usually by that midnight, we came home late. So we were on the go 16 hours pedaling and doing things like that. And because that was so successful, the harder my father strived now to get more and more. And we even learned what these people wanted more of. And so my mother and father saw to it that when we pedal again, that was in the house for us to take to those farmers, to the very same people, okay? So we at least managed to get some food in we were all undernourished, my father, and he looked like a guy from a concentration camp. Say, help me God, I got pictures at home, you know. If I didn't send them to my children already, to save for them the safekeeping, you know, I'm getting on in years. So I already gave all my good pictures to the family. So, God. I don't want to think about it.
Sounds like you had a real loving mom and dad.
Yes, but I was closer to my father. Of course, we spent so much time together. I loved my mother too. But she didn't have to do any of that, you know, but she had the other 5 to raise and everything in the garden we grew, and She did a lot of canning if she had the jars to can vegetables, fruits into. And then the heating was a problem. There was no heating like we have it today, just flip a switch and the house heats up, oh God. Or washing machine for that matter. Nothing like that. You had to do it by hand on a washboard, on a board with a brush. Anyway, heating. My mother had a gorgeous oven, big. And it had 4 burners. A rail on the outside was chrome. So us kids or anybody, don't burn yourself right away. But it only burned wood and coal. Briquettes, which were bar-like coal. I don't know if you ever seen anything like that. And there were pieces of coal. And you started with kindling, okay? And then the coal, and it heats up the whole house. Mama would open doors, and the heat just goes over the whole house. But the get coal stopped. When we needed coal, my father would just say, hey, Heinrich or Fritz, send me a load. But that all stopped. There was no more, okay? Town used it all up. No more goods coming into where you lived. But my father knew all about the railroads, too, that went from Mainz through my town, Rüsselsheim, up to Darmstadt, Frankfurt. And these transport were open, and they were just loaded with coal, okay? So father came home and talked about this on a dinner table, if you will. And he said, okay, on so-and-so, this train's gonna come through, and we just gotta be there. So again, me and father, whenever time it was, sometimes it was even under a blue sky. And we went to the railroad tracks, and we waited in the ditch. And when this transport train approached, slow, practically to a stop, and sometimes it did stop because it had to wait for the light to change from red to green to go on. And in that time, you tried to get on top of that car and throw the coals down. You can't go up there with your what you call those bags, gunny bags? Fill them up, tie it up, and, there is no time, and besides, there were patrols. You don't want to be caught and seen. So my father made me climb up this cart with iron prongs that you climb up, and then with my fanny, he would just push me up there. And he would say, now don't stand up. When you get up there, lay on your stomach so you won't be seen. And then what do? We'll throw down the coal. Oh, okay. But no gloves, nothing. It's your bare hands. So on my stomach, with both hands, throw the coal down, okay? And down there on the ditch along the cart, sometimes it was still standing still, or it slowly started to move now. And he would say, now you be careful, you got to get down here before this train. Yeah, okay, fine, I'll climb down. So he was picking up the coal there. And when it was time for me to come down, he saw to it, I came down. And then we waited for the train to go, hidden bushes. And this is how we stole coal. But not just one time. Every time this train came through. And there wasn't just my father and I. There were other people too. And of course, the police in town got wise to all this, and there were no dummies. They knew exactly who was stealing what and where and when. Well, they were husbands and fathers. They were on duty, so how is he going to get food to his table, okay? So everybody would give him that much, and this guy would give him that much. Shh, don't say nothing, okay? So this is how then the police were bribed and got a share of it, and it was okay then. But I was black, I was dirty, my tongue, my eyes, I was a black pig. But it was kind of fun.
You're a real tomboy, it sounds like.
I had to be everything, and I was, yeah.
So did you have brothers?
Oh, yeah, heck yes. There's 3 girls and 3 boys. The boy next to me was born 11 months after me. But the poor kid wasn't even a year old. He was diagnosed with polio. So he was no good to my father, which my father was waiting for 11 months younger, you know. He was waiting. He felt my father in a way, and he cried several times. And my father was so hard. I don't know how he managed to cry. But he loved us, and he could cry, yes. And sometimes we hugged and cried together. He was waiting for this brother of mine to grow up, to be his helper. And then this polio set in. Well, back to square one. Teresia, sorry, you're it. Fine. 3 years later, a sister. 3 years later, on Christmas Eve, the 23rd to be exact, 1938, came a brother. In 1941 came a brother. Oh, my father had to go to he was drafted. And it was really forbidden by Hitler to take any family man, especially more than 3 children, into his Wehrmacht, because Hitler knows they're needed at home with so many kids. But it shortage of men, so everybody was drafted, okay? So in 1941, father was drafted. Oh my God, it was bad. It was horrible, him gone. Oh God. But my mother knew that they had no right to call her Heinrich to war. And she went to the Bürgermeister, the towns, went to the Gesundheitsamt, which is the health department. She needed him home to keep us together. And I don't know, she was advised what to do, where to go to get her husband back home, okay? So I remember father coming home, and he was stationed in Paris. He was a medic. He was with the Red Cross, lots of years. He was a male nurse. He went to school for that too. Besides all this, I don't know how he found time. He came home from on a leave, I don't remember how long, but he had to go back. But before you knew it, here comes father, back home again, everything was well. I lost my train of thought. How did that come in? You asked me how many brothers, okay. So in 1941 come a brother, and during an air raid in 1944 on September 10th, 1944, here comes my baby sister. She was born in a basement during an air raid. When my mother started labor during the day, I had to go to Dr. Pollack, not a German name, but he spoke German, I guess. I know he did. He came to the house early enough, checked mother out. Now, in those days, I had no clue about babies, okay? I'm just saying it now because in hindsight, you know, I had 50 years to think about this. It got to be late in the afternoon, and the air raid started. The sirens went off, and everybody got ready to go to the shelters. We all had our knapsacks ready for change of clothes, something to eat, and off we went. But here comes mother and the doctor. But in 44, I knew that I was going to have another little sister, because it was me. Every time one was born, there was one more sibling for me to look after. You know, at least keep them clean, change diapers, whatever. And the air raid started. First, the doctor wanted to go home. We were all downstairs in the basement. We had several rooms in the basement. In other words, the basement in Germany, in those houses, the same floor plan as the basement is on top, okay? So my father had all those rooms. The potato room went to a bedroom, and the coal room were no coals no more. That was made for us to sit, blah, blah, blah. Doctor wanted to go home. Oh, he wanted to go home to his family. My father had this doctor on his throat. But they knew each other. He delivered all the rest of them except me and the brother next to me and my sister next to me. We were born in Ackenheim, the rest all in Gustavsburg. He wanted to go home. Father had him by the throat. I forget the doctor's first name. You're not going home. You're going to stay right here, okay? Well, it went back and forth, and they screamed at each other. Oh, it was terrible. Before you knew it, here comes screaming. It's a girl. Okay, fine, good. Now the doctor went home. So the baby sister was born during an air raid in the basement. And you had to register in those days if somebody passed away or if somebody was born. So Father, that's the first thing you do. So Father went to a Bürgermeister house the next day and wanted to register his latest creation. Heinrich V. Yeah, good, I'm fine. What's new? Maria, we had another little girl. Oh, yeah? What are you going to name her? Marida. Okay, when was she born? Yesterday. So the whatever those people, secretary, I don't know what you call them, got the file of our family and wanted to put in my sister's name. And he says, Heinrich, you know what? You got two of them on the same day. What do you mean, two of them? Well, your daughter Maria was born in 1935, same day. We didn't even know it. In the excitement, huh? So I have two sisters still in Germany today. Maria was born 35, the baby in 44. They're 9 years apart. And having a birthday the same day. And they're all doing well. And we all made it through the war.
Were you your father's favorite, do you think?
I don't think Father played favorite. My mama was a good one for that.
So you weren't your mom's favorite?
But no, I turned out to be like her husband. Strong-willed, stubborn as hell. I wasn't the daughter mother probably wanted. I was more like half girl, half boy. I had to be. I was no sissy like my sisters turned out to be. You know, I mean, they didn't have to do anything. Everything was done for them. I don't know, I turned also from all 6, I would say I'm the strongest. And I don't know why. The sister next to me with the polio boy, I mean, he learned to be a tailor because he couldn't ever have a trade standing up to any job on account of the leg. He was operated on many, many times, wore braces for years. So Father got him a job tailoring because he could sit like the Chinamen do. And found him a job with a tailor, a well-known tailor. And this brother turned out to be a tailor. He would make suits and buttonholes perfect. And he had lots of clients, lots of people. When the war was over and gradually there were goods to be bought, but nothing ready on the racks. So they would come Herr Wolf, Mr. Wolf, if he wasn't known, others would call him by his first name. I got so-and-so, I want you to make me a suit. I want you to make this, I want you to make this. The guy was busy. He was sewing all day, all night. He hardly got to sleep. He was busy. Now, my sister Maria, she's a sissy. I love her dearly. We on email twice a week. She came to visit me once 3 years ago. The first time that she came to visit me, good Lord. Well, I came to the United States in 1953. But in between 1953 and now, I had gone home when my parents started to be ill and then passed away. I went home to funerals. But that's the first time. So we had a great visit. She's a sissy. But she is a lovable person. Oh, you love her the minute you see her. But she is weak. She is not a strong girl. But she's a good woman. And the boy next to her is who? Dagobert, the Christmas boy. He is 6'3". He's my favorite. He's my favorite. And then there comes the one born in 1941, Heinz. He's junior. Heinrich Heinz, they're called, okay? He's somewhat of a big shot in his trade. And then my baby sister. She works in a department store. She loves doing what she's doing. So, and they all got children, so many of them.
Why do you remember your communion date so strongly?
Because it was the 16th of April, 1939. If there was a calendar to be had today, it was Weißer Sonntag, White Sunday. That's when you had to be less than 10 years old, and I was 8, wasn't I? January 31, 39, I was 8, yeah, in a few months. Why do I remember that day? Oh, God. You know what Holy Communion means? You do? Catholic.
Episcopalian.
It's like your wedding day as a bride when you're an adult, okay? I didn't know that then, I know it now. Anyway, my godmother, my namesake, she's my mother's oldest sister. And because I have her name and she's my godmother, in Germany, still today, you are responsible to the child that carries your name. You give your name too. So my godmother saw to it that she would dress me for my Holy Communion. And it had to be all white, except your body shoes were white too, from inside out and brand new. She had this dress tailored. It was gorgeous. I got the picture at home. And White Sunday came in the morning, and all the girls and boys in town, my age, thereabouts, we met at the sisters, Catholic sisters establishment, and we all were paraded in deuces from the sister's house to the main street on up to the church. And it had, oh God, at least 100 stairs going up. And all along the way, there were the townspeople on both sides, and the church had a band, or the town had a band. They were leading us with hymns. And in front of us, communion children, were the little kids, like you would have when somebody marries today. You have the little ones throwing rose petals. And as we walked, right then we would step on the petals all the way to church. Got into the church, and the boys there, and the girls there, and the family in the back. It's something you just can't forget. The feeling you have as an 8-year-old, dressed all in new clothes. You carried your candle, and it was decorated with the asparagus fern. and it had a cover so your hand wouldn't show, okay? You held your candle, it was a big one. And on this hand, you had a little purse and a rosary. Well, I also remember that date so well because we all were giving from our priest our hymn book, Gesangbuch. And on the first cover, it would be addressed to the recipient, which was me, Theresia Maria Wolf. And in print, April 16th, 1939. And when our house burned down, we lost the first floor, my bedroom, I found my hymn book with the date in it, but half of it was burned. But I don't know what happened to it. Mother didn't give it to me when I left home in 1953. And that day is just imprinted in you. You just can't forget it. It's just like your wedding day. How can you forget your wedding day? Huh?
And your aunt, was she very special to you?
Yes. Well, that goes back to the times with the fields. You see, in 1940, when we moved across the river to the house, I was still able to come by train to Nackenheim, where I was born, where we went to the fields and harvest all that. Why, my godmother was still a single woman at the time, although she was born in 1910, 1st of April. In 1941, she was 31 years old, looking after me, being 9, 10 years old, 8, 9, 10, huh? And grandmother, she had her house to run and lunches to pack for her husband and her sons to go into the fields. Why, godmother was in charge of me. Yes, she was close to me. You're darn right she was. And I went to see her before she passed away in 1982, 3. I could look in my passport, the date would be stamped in there. But she made it to 92 years of age, so she lived a long time. My father died age of 77 in 1986, or was it 86? I went home. The Ketchum's still alive. He died of stomach cancer. And then a year later, my mother was ready to call it quits and started with Parkinson's disease. And my siblings said, Theresia, you want to see Mother? You better come on home. So I had to make this flight again all alone. But we put her in the local nursing home. And I didn't make it to her funeral. And she died when she was 82, so she lived 5 years after Father died.
Did your aunt, did she ever marry?
No. Well, I retract that. Yes, she did. But through the church. There was no time where she could find a man, and she was very particular. And there was hardly no men to be had, so many got killed in the war. The church knew her, of course. She was born in that church and baptized just like I was in that church. And they found her a man way in Bad Orb. BAD/ORB. Oh, God, I don't know where it is. It's never heard of it in my life. There was a man. His name was George Lauer, Lauer. He was, he served in the war, the last one, World War II, and the first in earlier years. He was widowed, had a beautiful brick house. And those two, through the church, met and married. And she did that only when she could leave home. She stayed as long as she was needed on that farm, ranch type house. And when grandmother died in 49, and then it must have been in 49, 50 thereabouts, where this house went to the oldest son. And then my godmother married this man in Bad Orb and took grandfather with her. Okay, so grandfather was taken care of, and she finally was married. Good heavens, you want a year on this? I can supply that. I got it at home in the books, didn't know I was going to talk about this. And but that marriage didn't last long. The man was ill. He had injuries from the war, just like Reginald. And she nursed him till grandfather died. But by that time, I think I said that earlier, I didn't catch that either. I was already in the United States. So thinking about it, and I have in the past 49 years, I have cried many a times that I didn't make it, you know. I grew up and started a family and come to the United States, and leaving everybody at home, yeah, it hurts. And the older you get, and possibilities, they may not be around tomorrow morning, that kind of thing enters your mind, you know. Yeah, it hurts.
Did your what's one of your favorite memories of your godmother?
Going to the fields with her, waking me up in the wee hours in the morning to get the asparagus out before daylight came. All these months going to the fields, teaching me how to take care of the body, which my mother, she kept us clean, but there was no teaching. She had no time for this. My godmother made time. She taught me lots of things. I don't know, it was just being with her. She was, I almost said better than my mother, but I shouldn't say that as a daughter. In many ways, she was better than my mother.
You were like a daughter to her.
Yeah. I liked the way she treated me. She had time for me. My mother had no time for me, okay? That was missing in my growing up.
So when you were on the farm helping with harvest, you lived there with your...
All summer long, of course. And then our school years, it's nothing like it is here. It was just from 8 to 1, or from 8 to noon. During the war, I missed lots of years and hours in school. Why? Okay. Now, all the men, doesn't matter what age, you own a farm, let's say, and you're going to be drafted. You got to get in that uniform for Hitler, okay? Okay, now you're leaving your wife and all that stuff behind, all those fields. Who's going to do the work? There is no neighbor to help you. And if there were neighbors to help you, they were elderly men. No good for nothing, I mean, field work-wise, okay? So they turned to their local mayors, burgermeisters, and their priests that they need help. Can't you get us help? So it got to us in school. So when we were at school and were dismissed almost, teacher would say, now tomorrow morning, don't be wearing your nice clothes for school. Come in old clothes. We're going to the fields. And when that first started, I had no idea what she was talking about. But I presented it to my mother. Why do I have to wear that old clothes? I don't know. The Lehrer said, for you to wear this, this is what I'm going to put on you, and this is how you're going to go to school. And so we all were in school. We all gathered. And then she said, we're going to go to such and such a town. And that was like marching, too, you know. It was fun, in a way. Not have to go to school and sit all day and study. We were out in the open. I love out. I'd rather be outside than inside, anywhere, anytime. So we marched to the next town. And when we got to the fields, there were people already working there. And our teacher spoke with them, came back to us, and we were told what to do. For instance, when the potatoes were planted, they start to grow. But then everything you plant is bound to have a disease, an insect eating on it. So you had to pick the potato bug. I don't know if you know what that is. I don't know what the buggers look like, but that's what they were called, Kartoffelkäfer. We had to pick them. All of it. All of it. Row by row by row. If we didn't finish that day, by the next day we come again. We did that for months and months. Not this farmer, then it was their turn, then it was their turn. We had to do farm work instead schooling.
So you're pretty busy. You were
busy.
Had to help your father find food.
Oh my dear man, you haven't got a clue. I don't even know what it is to play, like my sister was lucky to do years later. Huh? They play ball. They do this, they do that. I have to do that yet today. I ain't got time for this. I never learned to do this. I never had time to do this.
So your childhood sort of disappeared during that.
Oh, it was robbed. It was robbed. But I'll do it again.
Did your father, when he was drafted, how long was he gone?
I cannot put dates on it.
Just approximately.
A year. Mm-hmm. So Mother got him back.
Do you remember the day he left?
No. I just remember him saying that he was in that stupid-looking uniform. God, he looked stupid in that uniform. Didn't suit him at all. He just said that he had to go, and we were understood what it is, you know, and why. And it was hard, yeah, without him being there, leading the family into daily routines. It was all up to Mother now, and of course me. But we had him, that year went fast, I suppose, because he was back home. Mm-hmm.
When you were in this, were you ever in the Hitler Youth?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, golly, but not long. Another reason, just like my mother had for my father. Everybody had to join it if you wanted to or not, okay? And we had to wear this white blouse and this particular skirt and this necktie, whatever, with the Hitler stuff on it. But I don't remember, it wasn't a daily thing. But you did have to go to meetings. I remember that. And being there, you had to do this Hitler thing first, you know, that song. Deutschland, Deutschland über alles, what that translates to. There wasn't much going on. And again, my father this time. My father saw to it that I get out of this ridiculous, whatever they call it. I was needed at home, and he had proven everybody knew it. So there was no argument. He got me out. So it was just a couple months, if it was a couple months. But I didn't have to do this no more. And then my siblings behind me were younger, so they were out of the picture completely.
Did you see? Were you aware of before things got really bad? Were you aware of what was going on in the world, the war?
I had no idea what this was all about. Nobody explained to us, things on the dinner table. There was never talk of war. My father just talked of the work he had to do, and then he would ask her, how did your day go? Did the kids mind you? And if, mostly me, if I didn't mind my mother and she was mad at me, why she would tattletale that father. And I got whipped pretty hard by him, and that practically killed him, but he had to punish me to please mother. And also to teach me to be a better daughter to mother, do what she tells you to do, But I rather took orders from my father as from my mother. So there was a clash, you see. So, yeah, that was that.
Did you see the young men in town? Did you see them go away to the military? I mean, did you notice that?
Just neighbors. I don't know. Mother would just tell father on the dinner table, did I tell you? Adolf Freit next door, he was drafted, he's gone now. Well, he was in a factory all day, you say. So when he came home, he wanted to know how our days went, what's new, what did you do, what needs to be done, But boys at my age, oh no, we were too young. No.
I mean, just that you saw the people leaving.
I didn't see them leave. You just heard it, that this is gone, that man's gone, he was drafted, he's gone. That's about all that I know of, yeah.
So did even though you didn't understand it, you must have heard on the radio. And did you have a radio?
We had a radio, but who listens to a radio? I mean, during the day we all were busy. In the evening hours, there was radio, of course, it was turned on. And when the younger ones already were upstairs in bed, Mother and I, we had some socks to darn, the holes in the socks and a button to put on. Father would have the radio on, but I didn't interest me in the least. I was talking with Mother, what needs to be done next. I didn't. And no, nobody told or explained to me what war is, no. I just had to find out the hard way when the air raids and running to the shelter and why does this get bombed, and I don't know, and there was no talk. My father was a neutral person. He didn't talk politics. He was not a politician. He didn't belong to no party. There was no such talk in my house. And if they did talk, our bedrooms, kids, were upstairs. Theirs was downstairs. And every room, the door, everything was always closed. And whispering, more or less. Us kids were not told, this is war, and I'm going to tell you what war is, or who's fighting who. Nothing.
So that time to you was just working
hard. It was
hard.
just, yeah.
And working hard.
It was just working to survive, yeah. And before you knew it, years went by.
Then you did get bombed though in that time.
Oh yeah. My town, Gustavsburg, we have the Main River, meeting the Rhine River at a point, okay? And right at that point, that's where we live, still today, Gustavsburg, Castell. And there are factories and a whole lot of bridges and a lock. Now, if American flyers or the British, if they didn't intend to bomb our bridges, which were just bridges to get from one town to the other over there, or the railroad bridge, maybe they meant to bomb Frankfurt or the Rüsselsheim, the Opel factory, huh? We're so close together, those towns at home. In 5 minutes today by car, you're in the next town. You know, we even walked it in a half an hour. On a Sunday afternoon, where do you want to go today? Let's go to Bischofsheim. Okay. We walk. In a half hour, you're there. So the bombs straight. And then we got hit. Our town got hit. But I doubt it purposely. It's nothing there but an iron factory.
So what was that like? I don't think we've ever talked to anybody that has been the victim of a bombing. What was it like as a child? What do you remember from a night?
Well, we came home. We spent 44 fall into 45 days and days and nights in a high-rising, bomb-proof cement bunker, 2 stories. And my father being well-known and a foreman in his job, he had a job not being in the bunker, but to protect the factory. Robbers, you know, people would take advantage. You know, everybody's in bunker, let's go rob the stores, that kind of thing. He was also a medic with the Red Cross, like I mentioned. We had to go on this particular night to the shelter, and it took a long time. It took hours and hours. And in between, when Father could find his way to the bunker, he came to us, and he told us what was going on. And then, of course, our neighbors and everybody, first come serve, we all sit about. And he would say, our house got hit. Our house got incinerator bombs. Our house is burning or burned. And my mother just lost it, okay? My mother just screamed. And, of course, we heard what Father said, and then we started to cry, joining our mother, having no house where we're going to sleep and eat. And so when it was the all-clear sound, we could leave the bunkers. We ran home. We didn't walk. We couldn't get there fast enough. And our house was connected with fields, not owned by us, to farmers who had this land, and there was a ditch. And when we neared our house, we could still see the smoldering. And in the ditch were my baby sister's diapers. You know, she was just born in September 44. She probably was just a month or 2 old. Her diapers were there. Pots and pans was there. I guess whoever tried to save the house threw everything out, and it landed there, okay? But I didn't. I just saw it. Never mind that. I was interested in my house, my bed. And the whole first floor was gone. But the rest of it was there. So where do we sleep now? Where do we live now? Where do we go now? So the Red Cross was there to help anybody, not just us. And the neighbors who were spared. Frau Wolf, can I help you? What do you need? Blah, blah, blah. And so my father went into the basement and really fixed it up for us to live there. We had no place to live. But we all got sick living there for months at a time. In a basement, the cement, the moisture, we were constantly, somebody was sick. Not having enough soap, you couldn't wash, you just washed your face. We broke out in boils from not being able to wash and to bathe, stuff like that. But then Father managed again, a wizard, to get this house back in shape. So whatever animals he could get, whatever he could muster, he traded it for bricks and cement. And him and his working colleagues and family members, what have you, they tore the top down and rebuilt it. So in a year's time, we had our house back. What the heck? But it was hard, difficult to live in a basement.
I need to stop just for a minute because I got to change tapes.
Okay,